In honor of the new Saw X coming out, I thought it would be a good time to review the first ever Saw movie, and the plot for it is pretty much this. Two strangers awaken in a room with no recollection of how they got there, and soon discover their pawns in a deadly game perpetrated by a notorious serial killer. Alright, let's get into the things that I liked about this movie, and the first thing I'll say is that this movie has really good camera work. You can tell very early on that James Wan is going to be a very special director. And if you don't know James Wan at this point, he pretty much directed the first two Conjuring movies, and he's directed Aquaman. Although this is one of James Wan's first ever movies that he made, it's actually one of his best. Although with some of the camera work and dialogue, it definitely feels like an early 2000s movie, and not in a good way. This movie also wasn't the torture fest that I thought it was going to be, and the movie's actually more of like a thriller crime movie than it is an actual horror movie. And obviously the actual horror is the two main characters being stuck in this place. Also, they can't just be in this place for the whole movie, so we get a lot of background scenes that led them to the current area that they're in. There's also some detectives or police officers who are working on the case, and we get some background on those characters as well. Jigsaw's whole philosophy in this movie is just to get people to appreciate life, which honestly I don't think anyone watching this video disagrees with, but the only problem is that the way he makes people appreciate life is literally putting them near death. And even if they're about to die, at least they're starting to appreciate their life a bit more, but by the time they do, it's a bit too late. This movie has one of the craziest twists that I've ever seen in a movie, because, spoilers if you haven't seen Saw, even though the movie came out 20 years ago, but pretty much one of the main antagonists end up getting killed in this movie, and when they get killed, the door actually ended up opening because he was coming through to kill our two main leads. And once one of them ends up escaping because the guy literally cut his foot off literally minutes before this, he ends up trying to get some help or whatever he can because once again he's not fully mobile, and our other lead is actually just staying there waiting for help, and he's trying to figure out his own way to get out of the situation. And there was a corpse that was in this movie the entire time, by the way, just chilling, and then out of nowhere the guy gets up and leaves, and I was literally shocked. And it's only because while I was watching the movie, I was saying to myself, because the two main characters have this scene where they're trying to figure out who's the killer because they actually think that one of them is Jigsaw. And I said to myself, if I was Jigsaw, why would I just be in the same place that the people are getting trapped in? But my theory was proven wrong because the guy literally got up like it was another Tuesday and just told him that the key was in the bathtub. But the only problem is he unclogged the bathtub where the key was the whole time. So the movie just ends with him dying, or at least you hear him screaming to his death. Although this movie is really great, one of the issues that I have with it is simply the acting from the guy who plays Lawrence in this movie. And when it's a normal scene, I think he's pretty good. But when the movie requires him to be a bit more emotional and stuff like that, it didn't really work for me. Also, the dialogue for this movie also didn't work for me at times. Once again, this movie came out in the mid-2000s and you definitely notice it. But my biggest issue with this movie is that the people in this movie are way too casual about the crazy stuff that happens in this movie. But the example that I'll use for this video is that Lawrence and his wife get into an argument, and while they're getting into an argument, Lawrence actually has to leave to go to his job, and once the door shuts, you hear the daughter screaming for her life, and the mom is literally just jogging to the situation, where if it was me and my daughter was screaming like that, I would have ran there quicker than the Flash. Also, how quick of a walker is Lawrence? Because literally, like I said, the moment the door shuts, the daughter starts screaming, but Lawrence never comes back through the door, so Lawrence just must be a very quick walker then. But yeah, guys, overall, if you haven't seen Saw, you should probably watch it because it is a classic.